Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Happy Saturday to everyone. I'm so glad that you are here for a really fun class that we have going on. This has got me feeling vacation vibes big time. I am Sarah Ellis. I am a designer with Beadalon, and I'm going to be using a lot of really cool Beadalon products. I'm going to be showing you guys the tying station. We're going to make a really awesome bracelet. Cannot wait to show this to you. The finished results are really, really beautiful, and it's super versatile. You can change this up and kind of make it your own. But I do feel like the version that I'm going to be showing you is really, really pretty. Everybody kind of likes blue. So hopefully if you're a blue fan out there, you're really going to like this project. We're going to be using the Beadalon tying station. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the tying station, I'm going to show it to you this way first, just because it's hard sometimes to get the entire tying station in the shot when it's down on the table. So I do want to talk about it a little bit this direction first before we get to work. So the tying station really is kind of like the grown-up version of a safety pin or a clipboard when we used to make bracelets. Remember back in the day, summer camp, we would make macrame style bracelets or anything really where we needed to kind of safety pin one end down. The great thing about the tying station is that you can attach both ends, and it's got this open feature here where you can get your hands and your fingers underneath your work. So your work is kind of elevated up off of the surface, which makes it really, really convenient. You've got both hands free, and it's got a ruler right along the edge. So it's going to help you measure as you go, which are features that I had wished that my clipboard had, right, when I was a kid. So this tool is very versatile. I'm just going to show you one of the many ways that you can use this. There are so many different things that you can do with this. So don't feel like you're limited to just this style of bracelet by any means. This is a really handy tool to have anytime you need to secure the end of your work for a project that you're working on. We're going to be using some size 6 silk cord for this, which is kind of strange. I picked this intentionally because I know some of you have got this in your drawer and maybe you're not knotting with it. I'm going to show you how to incorporate it into a friendship bracelet. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's get down to it and I'll show you the rest of what I've got, and we're going to make a great bracelet, you guys. All right, so as I mentioned, you can't see the entire tying station in the shot. So I did want to give you kind of an overview of what it looks like, just so you get kind of an idea of the space. But you've got at least 10 inches here to work with. And it also comes with a really cool little attachment that is made out of foam, where you can take this plate off and you can put the foam plate down. And that's if you're working on a piece of jewelry that is longer than your 10 inches. And the foam is just going to protect it so that you're not putting your beads or whatever you're working with between two acrylic plates. I'll get into more of that in just a second, but let's talk a little bit more about materials for our project. So I mentioned we're going to be using some silk cord. This is normally something that you would be using to knot between your gemstones or your pearls, but we're actually going to use this a little bit different today. We're going to use this to create some square knots with over the top of some leather cord. So for leather cord, I'm using the bead landing cording, and I got the little card that has like 3 different colors, and this one has black and like a pearly kind of cream color, and then sort of a hematite color. I'm using this pearly color just because I feel like it goes really, really well. It's nice and light for our project. You're going to need about 24 inches of this, and you're going to need some beads. So my choice for beads, I love these. I love these cards that have the multiple strands in different sizes. I grabbed this really beautiful kind of teal blue. It's definitely more on the blue side than the green side for sure, of these glass beads in multiple sizes. And we're going to be using kind of the medium size that's in here. I'm not entirely sure of the measure on those, but kind of falls in the middle. It's not the smallest, it's the next one up. But then it leaves you with a lot of beads left over for other projects. So really, really cool to have. I mean, who doesn't want extra beads, right? And then last but not least, we're going to be using some of these awesome clay flowers. I love these. They are definitely summertime feeling for sure. So if you're like me today, it's beautiful outside, but it's so cold. This is putting me in that warm state of mind for sure. So these come in a lot of different colors. I picked the blues. I just thought they were so beautiful. I couldn't resist, but they do come in pink, and I think they come in black and white as well. All right, you're going to need a button and some findings, and you probably want to grab some GS Hypo cement because we are going to have to add a little bit of glue to some of our knots for this. All right, so let's get started. We are going to take our piece of leather cord. We've got about 24 inches of this, and you want to fold this in half. Okay, and we want to tie
a video.
we want
a video.
We want to we want to fold this in half.
Hold on
and
one sec.
Create a loop that will fit over the button that we're going to use. Okay, so you may need some jump rings. I don't know if you will or not, but I'm going to just use my leather and my button. I want to be sure that the loop that I create before I tie my knot is going to go over our button, because that's actually going to serve as our clasp. Okay, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold this over and then tie just an overhanded knot. Okay, and before I secure that knot, I got to do a couple of things. First, I want to double check to make sure that my button is going to fit. And the next thing I want to do before I secure this down is I want to take my silk cord off of the card, and we're going to cut it. We're actually going to secure part of our silk cord to this knot before we tighten that completely down. So just sit this down for a second and grab your silk cord. Okay, it's going to come on a card, and you want to just go ahead and take that off of the card. We're going to use almost all of the silk cord for this, but we're actually going to cut this into 2 pieces. Okay, so you definitely need some scissors if you don't have those, or some sort of cutting tool. Okay, and you can stretch this out if you want to get kind of the kinks out of it. I pull on mine quite a bit. Just give it the tug, you know, to pull, because where it's been on the card, it does have, see the little wrinkles that are in it. All right, now what you want to do is you want to, don't remove your needle. Okay, this does come with a needle on the end. We're going to be using this. So leave your needle on the end, but you want to measure from the needle 12 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to lay mine up against the tying station here because I can measure right where we're at. Okay, there's 10 inches if I bring it down here. And then we want to add 2 more inches to that. Okay, and we want to cut right there. So basically we're cutting 12 inches from the needle. This longer piece, just sit this to the side. We're going to be creating knots with it. And this piece is going to be attached to our piece of leather. So what I'm going to do before I attach this to the tying station is I'm going to take the very end, and I just want to kind of slide it into the opening where we haven't secured our knot just yet, right? And pull that down. You may have to tighten your knot up a little bit more. It's still a little bit loose before you insert your thread here. Okay, and you want to tighten down that knot. Okay, and you want to get it really, really tight. So sometimes I will take, because it's a little bit slippery, I'll take some pliers and really pull on that knot to make it nice and secure. Okay, and I don't want that silk cord to slip out. Later on, we will trim this off, but for now, I'm just going to leave that. Okay, that's just kind of part of it. I want to bring the silk cord to the back between our 2 pieces of our leather cord. Okay, now we're going to attach this to our tying station. So we are going to unscrew our wing nut and remove the washer and the acrylic plate. And that leaves us with our little peg here. And we're going to take our loop that we created with our knot, and we're going to put that over the peg, and we are going to put all of this back on, okay, and secure that down. Whoops. Okay, So you just want to tighten that down, and I'm not super worried. There's not any beads or anything under here, so I can make this really, really secure. I'm not worried that I'm going to squeeze too hard on this. I do, however, recommend that you don't lose your little washer here. If you try to screw your wing nut down without the washer, you can crack your acrylic plate here. So definitely don't want to lose that little guy. Super important. All right, so that's nice and secure. I know that's not going to go anywhere. Now I'm going to be able to secure the rest of my cord down here on the bottom. And what you may have noticed is that the bottom is a bit adjustable. So if you're working on a short piece, you can slide this up and then tighten it down. We're going to leave ours down here at the bottom. But before we do anything else, remember, we still have this needle here on the end of our silk cord down here at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and take our flowers, and we're going to thread our flowers onto our needle. Okay, so they have a hole right on the back, and they're going to sit up pretty high, which gives this piece some definite dimension to it. So I'm going to thread on 5 of the flowers. And you can do more. You can definitely adjust this if you need a longer bracelet. Don't feel like you are locked in with the measurement that I give you here by any means. Okay. All right, so I've thread on all of my flowers. Okay. Now down here on the bottom of the tying station, I want to secure both ends and my silk cord. So I'm going to bring the 2 ends of the cord together, and I'm just going to slide those underneath the acrylic plate down here. You don't have to take this all the way off if you don't want to. And I'm going to bring my silk cord and attach it as well. Uh-oh, it looks like we came undone up here. I do want to secure this silk a little bit more, so I'm going to see how I pulled this a little too hard and it just kind of slid out. I'm going to slide that underneath the plate as well, and that'll help keep that silk cord from sliding out. The glue will definitely help when we get to that point. So tighten that down. All right, now we're ready to secure. So bring everything together. You want this silk cord to kind of be in the middle of your 2 pieces of leather. It's going to kind of do its own thing here in the beginning, and that's fine. That's fine. It will all work out in the end. It is kind of wonky and wiggly here in the beginning, but it all works out. All right, so secure down here just by tightening down. Okay. All right, now everything is making sure that silk cord, everything is slippery. I've got working on here. Okay, now everything is nice and secure. So I've got both hands free, right? Now we can really kind of get to work on this. This is just the setup. Now we're ready to actually get some things done. So I've got my beads, okay? And I'm gonna show you guys how to create a square knot, and then we're gonna add some beads to our square knot as we go. Kind of brighten things up a little bit there with our light. Okay, so remember the long piece of silk cord that we cut, okay? We want to take that silk cord, find the ends, bring the 2 ends together, and find the middle. And when you find the middle, you want to take that middle and put it underneath all of the cords that you've got here. So your 2 pieces of leather and your silk cord that are on the tying station. So make sure that you've got the middle there. Okay, we're going to create a square knot, and for those of you who have taken my classes before, a square knot you may be familiar with. For those of you who are not, I'm going to walk you through this pretty slow. The first square knot is always kind of the trickiest, but once you get your cord secured, it makes a lot more sense. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right-handed part of the silk cord, and I'm going to create a P shape, okay, over the top of all of the cords that are running in the core here in the center, okay? And I'm going to bring that out this way over here to the left. Now my left-handed cord, I'm also going to create kind of a P shape. I'm going to cross over the top of the cord that I brought out this direction, but now I want to take all of this and go behind all of the cords and up through that P shape that I made on the right-handed side. Now, again, this is kind of wonky at first, and this knot will make a whole lot more sense after we get it secure. So just bear with me here. All right. And then we're going to pull and pull tight. Okay. A square knot happens in 2 steps. So that was the first step. Now we got to do the second step. The second step, we're going to start on the left-handed side. We're going to take our cord, make a P shape over the core. Okay. With our left-handed cord, we're going to take our right-handed cord, make sure it's going over the top of this cord that's now running out this direction, behind everything and up through the P shape that we made on the left. Okay. And then pull. And that's the second step. So that is going to create your square knot. That is the 2 steps. If you only do the one side over and over again, you're just creating a half hitch knot, which is going to create a spiral. The square knot, you have to do the mirror image. You do the right side and then you do the left side. That's what's going to make that knot nice and flat. Okay. All right. So we've created one of those. Now we need to do 4 more, and then we're going to start adding some beads to this. So I'm going to take the right-handed cord, making kind of a loop P shape here over the center of everything, taking the left-handed cord, and I'm going to go back behind and up through the loop and pull. Okay. I'm going to repeat this. So left-handed P shape, my right-handed cord goes over and then underneath, up through and pull. And there are 2 of our square knots. Okay. And I'll lift this up because I know that that white against that kind of pearly white is kind of hard to see, but you get a good idea. If I hold it up, you can see we've got 2. So we need to do 3 more. So we're just going to repeat our P shape over the top with our right, left, goes back behind and up through and pull. Okay, left side, under and up through and pull. Okay, and I just want to show you real quick how you can count how many square knots you've made. So it is kind of hard to see with the colors that we've got here, but it makes a little bump, right? And there are actually 3 little bumps here. There's 1, 2, and 3. So if you count the bumps on the right-handed side, that's going to tell you how many of the square knots you've created. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So we only need 2 more square knots to go. And then we're going to start adding some beads to this to give it some more interest. So right-hand cord makes the P shape. Left-handed cord goes across this cord, right? And then back behind everything and up through and pull. That's step 1. Step 2 is the same thing, just on the other side. Okay, P shape. The right-handed cord goes underneath and pull. There's 4. We're going to do 1 more. Okay, so there's our P shape and back behind and pull. And last step is our P shape on the left and behind and pull. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to start adding some beads to this. Now we have our flowers in the middle. We're not ready for any of the flowers yet. We're going to do 2 more square knots before we start adding our flowers to this. And we're actually going to add some of these beautiful beads to the outer cords. Okay. So take 2 of your little rondelles and you want to thread those on to the end of your cord. And your silk cord, it may start to fray a little bit. You can use some glue here. You can always use your saliva. Not that I'm advocating adding your DNA to your jewelry making, but if you get in a pinch, you can definitely do that. A little bit of beeswax actually works really well too. So you can use that. It makes me wish that these ends had needles on them as well, but Fortunately for us, these rondelles have pretty good size hole. You just want to, you know, go slow with it. Don't get mad at the beads, but your silk cord will go through there. A little extra glue definitely helps. So you want to thread one of those and drop it down. Okay. And then we just want to do the same thing over here on the other side. So we want to take a bead and thread it onto the end of our cord and drop it down. So now we've got a rondelle on either side. Okay. And we're just going to treat this just like we would if those beads didn't exist. So we're just going to continue with our square knots and just act like the beads are not even there. So same thing, we're going to go on the right-handed side. Okay. And make that little P shape. Same thing with our left. We're going to go over, back behind, and up through. And when we secure this knot, it's going to have those beads sitting on the outer edges of our leather cord. Okay, so we're going to do the left-handed side. Okay. And the silk cord is a little bit slippery. So you may notice that the first step of your knot may come undone. Just tighten it down again before you go to tighten in that second knot, and everything will tighten down. It's no problems. Not at all. You just got to be kind of aggressive with those knots to make everything go exactly where you want it to go. But now we've got our little beads on either side. We're going to do another set of those. So we're going to take our silk cord. We're going to thread a bead on to the end. And one end for me is a little bit more challenging than the other. It really wants to fray. Oh, goodness. If you twist it a little bit, that helps too, for sure. Get that on there. Come on. There we go. I'm going to drop that one down. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Thread our bead on. If you had some, you know, some large eye needles, you certainly could. Ooh, yeah, hairspray. Somebody in the comments mentioned hairspray. Hairspray would totally work. Or you could put needles, you know, if you had your own needles, you could put your own needles on the ends here. And it definitely would help. Sometimes the cord won't fray and other times it does. So it just really kind of, you know, it can be challenging on some days and other days not. A piece of Scotch tape would also definitely work. All right, so same thing. We're going to make our P shape on the right, taking our left-handed cord, back behind, and up, and pull. And that's step one. Step two, we're going to do without the beads. Okay, so we're just doing the left-handed side and pull. And again, that first half of the knot got a little wiggly on me and came loose, but that's all right. You're just going to take your fingers in there and kind of tighten down everything. And then when you pull that second knot nice and tight, it's really going to help to tighten everything up for you. Okay, so there we go. All right, now we're ready to add one of these beautiful flowers to this. So our silk cord should be running hopefully between the middle of our two pieces of leather. We're going to slide one of these guys right up, and it's going to sit right on top of that leather cord. And that's exactly what you want. You want it to be up here. So this is really going to give us some dimension to this project. So we put our first flower up here, and then the same thing, we're going to thread on our beads on either side. So our beads are going to kind of help to hold that flower up. So we're going to do a bead on either side. Okay, drop those down. Okay, same thing. we're just going to tie our square knot the exact same way, but this knot is actually going to kind of happen underneath that flower. So you're really not going to see it much, but you do want to be sure that you are getting, you know, right up close to the flower. So if you need to pick your tying station up and kind of look at the underneath or whatever, you absolutely can do that. You're not committed to anything, right? You can always undo things beforehand. So you get that first step of that knot done. And then if you need to kind of look at it from the side to make sure that that knot is not way far away from that flower, you just want it to be right as close as possible, okay? That's really going to help you in the long run to make sure that you are as close to your flowers as possible. Otherwise, you're going to run out of room for all of your other beads. And it does kind of throw the balance off just a little bit because we want those two beads to definitely be underneath our flower. That's going to keep our flower from kind of slipping side to side, right? That's going to keep that flower nice and straight up and down. All right, so same thing. We're going to add beads to either side. And what we want to do, so the pattern for this, if you are working along or if you are ready to, you're going a lot faster than I am because you're not struggling with your cord. The pattern is going to be 2 knots with the beads and 2 knots without the beads. I'm sorry, 2 knots. Oh, goodness, that is not right at all. 2 knots with with the beads and then a flower. 2 knots with beads and a flower. Sorry, I was struggling with this cord. The words were not quite coming out right. All right, so a bead on either side. There we go. Okay, another square knot. So our right hand P shape, our left hand going back behind and pull. Okay, and our left-handed P shape, our right-handed cord is going back behind and pull. And I'm going to tighten everything up. Really place those beads where you want them to go before you really tighten down on that knot. Okay, get that nice and secure. So this is what we've got so far. You can see our beads are nice and evenly spaced out. Our flower is right there in the middle. Okay, so we did a section of knots without a flower, right? We just have the beads on the sides. We're going to do another one with just the beads on the sides. And then for the next one after that, we're going to slide up another one of our pretty flowers. So we're going to thread on a bead, let that drop down, and another bead, and let that drop. Okay. So right-handed loop, left hand goes behind and up through and pull. The left-handed P shape, right hand goes behind and up through. And before you pull down tight, go ahead and tighten up that first half of the knot. And there you go. All right, now we're ready to slide up another flower. The flowers really take this to a whole nother level. However, if you wanted to skip the flowers, this still makes a really beautiful bracelet, right? With all of these beautiful beads going down the side. So you don't have to add the third bead if you don't want to, but I feel like it just really kind of adds something extra to it. That being said, there are other things that you can use in the middle here. You don't have to use flowers. You can use leaves, you can use other round beads if you want to. And basically you're just going to do the same thing. You'll slide those up right where you want them to be, and then just knot around them. And they will be in the center of your bracelet. So you're definitely not limited to, you know, a flower by any means. You can use whatever you want to. I've seen this done with a lot of different things. In the fall, it looks really beautiful to have the leaves. You can do like some flowers down the center that are fall colored. And then instead of the rondelles along the sides, you can even change those up if you want to. Instead of rondelles, you could use check glass leaves, right? Or some metal leaves, and it looks really, really pretty. Okay. There's a bead on that side. And add a bead to the other side. Okay. And we're going to knot. So our square knot, just following the same steps. Knotting is one of the things that I absolutely love to do on my tying station. And part of the reason that I love it is because you can change up the same knot so many different ways. Like for instance, what we're doing here with the square knot. So we've added our beads to our outer thread, right? So that those beads are going to be on that outside edge. Or you could add your beads in the center, right? Like our flowers here. You can knot around things instead, right? You can really kind of change up the exact same knot just by changing your beads and just by changing kind of the placement of where things are in the knot itself. And the tying station makes it doubly easy because you can really get your hands free and underneath everything, which is really, really nice, and measure as you go. Right, so I'm just kind of following the same steps here. I feel like we've kind of talked through this knot so many times. Before I pull, tighten that down a little bit more and then make it nice and tight. Okay, and now we're ready to slide up another flower. That's going to sit right there in the center. And we're going to add our beads to the outside. There's a bead on the right. And we'll put our bead on the left. Okay, drop those down. And repeat with our knots. And pull. I definitely think, I saw in the comments, somebody said that the beads and the flowers match perfectly. I definitely think they were made to go together for sure. But these flowers come in some different colors, and you definitely could, you know, use rondelles in the pink to go with the pink ones, and it would be absolutely beautiful as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the flowers also come, I think I have them actually, in black and white. And if you were going to use the black and white flowers, the clay flowers, you could make the beads any pop of color that you wanted to. That would be really cool. A lot of options, a lot of options. But I agree. I think that these blue rondelles and these blue flowers were the perfect mix. Okay, we're going to do one more set of knots with just the beads, and then we'll slide up another flower. So we're going to drop down. Okay. And we're ready for another knot. And all the time, I don't know if you've noticed or not, and I probably should have mentioned this, but as I'm going, I'm always making sure that that silk cord is always in the center, even when I don't have a flower on it. I still am really trying to keep that silk cord in the middle of the two pieces of the leather cord. Okay, and now we're ready to slide up another flower. So there's that one. Was so pretty, so beachy. Definitely gives me vacation vibes for sure. It makes me wish that it was as warm outside as it looks today. It's very deceptive. The sun is shining and the sky is blue, but it's very, very cold today here. Okay. Now for my bracelet, I only have one more flower to go. If you need a little bit longer of a bracelet, you definitely can add another flower section, and that will make your bracelet a little bit longer. So you can make your adjustment that way, or if you need to, you can add hardware to the end. So instead of a button, you know, just a jump ring and a clasp would work as well. So there are some different ways that you can adjust the length to this without really changing up the design too much. But I really feel like if you just added one more section of the knots with a flower, that really is going to kind of give you another inch to your bracelet. And we'll measure this at the end, so you'll know exactly how long this bracelet will be with the amount of beads that I've put here. I believe that it turns out to be right at a 7.5 inch bracelet. But it's been a minute since I made this the first time, so we'll have to double check. Don't let me forget. We will double check at the end. All right, now I noticed my bead here in that first set of the knot got a little loose. You can always adjust all of that. Don't lock in that second knot until you've adjusted everything. Okay. All right, we're gonna do one more set with just the beads, and then we'll slide up our final flower. Okay. So we're getting very close to the end here. And I will show you how to finish this off with our button and where to add the glue, because you do want to add a little bit of the GS Hypo cement. If you want to use E6000, you can, but I really recommend using it on a toothpick, you know, just so that you don't end up with a big glob of glue. All right, we're going to slide up our last flower here. Put that guy right in place. Okay, and now we're going to add our beads. So we're going to add the beads to go underneath the flower. We're actually going to do, let's see, we're doing 3 more sections of our beads. And then we're going to finish off. Remember how where we started with 5 square knots. We're going to finish with the 5 square knots, just so that everything is nice and balanced on both ends. All right, so now, of course, the beads and the thread don't want to get along with each other. Getting close to the end here. Come on, we've made it this far. There we go. All right. So right side P shape, the left goes underneath and up through and pull. Okay, and then we're going to do the left. So our left-handed P shape, the right cord goes back behind and up through. And I want to tighten that first section of the knot first, and then pull. And adjust that flower. He was sitting to the side just a little bit. Okay. All right, so we're going to do 3 more knots with just the outer beads. Okay, so there's a bead on one side. and a bead on the other side. So this project is definitely what I would consider, you know, beginner friendly. It's really just once you kind of master the square knot, that part, once you get that part down, you're good to go. The most time consuming part of this obviously is adding the beads to either side of your cords as you're working. But other than that, it works up fairly quickly. You know, if you if you add some little extra help to the ends of your cord, for sure, whether it's, you know, some clear nail polish or a piece of tape or some glue to stiffen up the ends of your cord, that's definitely going to make your life a lot easier. And it'll make the bracelet go a lot faster. But for the most part, I feel like mastering the knot is probably the main thing here. And then once you kind of do that, you're able to see where you can make adjustments and where you can add beads or, you know, add your own little twist to it. All right, so here's our last knot with our beads. I'm gonna readjust here just a little bit. Okay, so right hand, left cord goes behind and pull. Okay, and then the left side and the right cord goes behind, up through, and we're gonna pull. All right, now we're just gonna finish off with 5 knots, 5 of our square knots that do not have any beads at all. And this is also another place where you can make your adjustments. So if you need a little bit longer bracelet, instead of doing 5 knots, you could do, you know, a section that's more like an inch worth of knots and an inch worth of knots here. And that's going to keep your bead count the same, right? But it is going to extend the length of your overall bracelet. So there are several places where you can make some little adjustments like that, just to add some extra, a little bit of extra length, right? It's not going to be a major adjustment, but you know, you'll get at least another 1/2 inch to 1 inch out of your bracelet that way, which is a good thing if you need it. Okay. So I'm just kind of speeding through these guys to finish off here. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to finish this bracelet at the end. I love using a button for a clasp. For one thing, it makes it into a bracelet that I can very easily put on without help. I don't have to rely on somebody to come help me put my bracelet on for me, which is nice. All right, so remember, again, we can count how many knots we have by the little bumps. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've made our 5 knots. Now we're ready to take this off of the tying station and finish all of this up. So I'm going to release from the bottom, and then I'm going to come up here and release from the top. Okay, I do have to take the top all the way off. Put all of this back. And now we can sit our tying station to the side and really focus on finishing up and tying off our ends. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to take our bracelet and come to the back. And you can see here on the back how pretty the bracelet is even without the flowers, right? So it's still a cool bracelet, right? Even if it flips over on your wrist, you're still going to have, you know, a really cool looking bracelet. But I do want to come to the back because I want to take our 2 ends of the silk that we have been knotting with, and I want to tie an overhanded knot with these and push that knot down up against the surface of the bracelet. So I'm just doing a standard overhand knot, not anything fancy. It's not a square knot. And I'm bringing that down and pulling that tight up against the back of those square knots. Okay, so I pulled it once. I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to knot it twice and pull that down right up against the surface. Okay, just like so. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to come in with my Hypo cement, and I want to put a little bit of that on that knot that we just created. Okay, and I mean just the smallest amount. And please ignore the disaster that is my glue here. Those of you who have Hypo cement, you know how gross the top of your glue container can get. It's a constant struggle. All right, so a little bit of glue to that knot, and we're gonna let that dry just a little bit. It's not going to completely set up. It's going to take several hours. I definitely recommend not wearing this until this has dried for at least 24 hours, but it'll be dry enough to not really have to worry about it nearly as much in just a little bit. You just want it to get to tacky stage. All right, now we want to add a little bit of this hypo cement up here. Remember where our silk cord is coming out? We want to add just a tiny, tiny little bit right in there. And remember, we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to trim that off so that you don't ever see this. But I do feel like the glue is just a little added extra security to that. Okay. And then you can come to the back of this knot, and if you need to add a little bit there as well, you can. Now don't put the hypo cement up yet, because we've got to tie 2 more knots. So the first thing I want to do is I do want to trim off these tails that I've got going on here. I'm not going to cut it right up against the knot just yet. Still want that to dry a little bit, but I am going to trim just so that they are not necessarily in my way. Okay. And I can trim, remember the end that has the needle on it? I can trim this off now. It's nice and secure because it's been knotted over the top of the entire length of the bracelet. So I don't necessarily have to worry about this guy anymore. I don't feel like he's going to slip free at all. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to take our ends together, and we're going to tie an overhanded knot with both of these. And we want to pull that knot right up against the square knots that we made. Okay. And pull that down tight. And if you need to use your pliers to pull that down tight, there's no shame in that. I'm going to grab mine. Just feel like this cord's a little slippery, so it helps to use your pliers to pull that tight. All right, so there's a knot there. And if you want to add a little drop of glue to this guy, go right ahead. I'm going to add a little drop of glue just to the back, just in those little creases of the knot. So you're not ever going to see it. And the hypo cement dries clear. Okay. Set that to the side because we're going to do one more knot here in just a second. But the next thing I want to do is I want to thread on a button. Any shank style button will do. And I'm just going to thread that onto one of my cords here. And if you have trouble, if your cord is a little bit thick for the shank on your button, you can trim your leather or whatever cord you're using at an angle, and that'll definitely help to thread it through your button. And then you can grab it with your pliers if you want to pull. Okay. So I'm just threading that onto one of the cords. I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to have that sit right up against the knot that we just made. And I'm going to tie another knot on the other side of the button to secure. And then we're going to trim off these ends. If you have a button that has a shank that's big enough to go over both, pieces of your cord, you don't have to do it this way, but the shank on my button is a little small. So, and again, I'm going to use my pliers to really help me tighten that knot down. Okay, I'm going to trim off. I'm going to leave a little bit behind just because I kind of like it. They're fun. And then again, back here on the back, I'm going to add one more little bit of the hypo cement. And I'm done with the glue. Okay. And now I can trim this off. Remember where we glued? We can trim these off now. Now that glue, like I said, it's not dry, but it's to the tacky state, which is good enough for me. I can come in and trim as close to that knot as possible. And if you feel like you need a little extra security, after you trim it, you can add another little drop of glue to that, but nobody is ever going to see that. So now when you come to the front, you have your button on the front, you've got your beautiful bracelet, and oh, last but not least, we need to trim this guy off. You'll never even know he was there. And he's gone. All right. So you've got your button, goes right through, and you've got a really pretty summertime, right? Springtime bracelet. Definitely dreaming of the summer warmth. But Yeah, and you can change this up however you want to. You could change your colors, you can change your flowers, a lot of options here, right? You can change your button to something else. You could even use just a large bead here instead of a button, or you could use a clasp. You could just use a standard clasp and some jump rings. Either one, either one. Now, I told you before that I was gonna give you a measurement of this before we go. So I'm definitely gonna do that. Let me grab my ruler and I'll give you a measurement of how long this one is going to be. And then you can definitely make your adjustments from there. So this is right at 7.5 inches. Well, it's going to fall probably about a 7 1/4 inches. So I'm shy just a little bit of 7.5 inches. And that is with 5 of the flowers, and there are 17 of the rondelles on either side. So if you needed to make an adjustment and you needed a little bit more length, you can either add with your square knots or you can add another flower to this because there are flowers left over. I still had 5 flowers left, right? All right, guys, I'm going to turn you around. I'm going to show it to you from a different angle, and we are going to say our goodbyes for today. So let me get you back around this direction so that you can kind of see it this way. It just, sometimes it helps to see things, you know, from a different angle. You can see what it would look like if I had it on. How cool that is. And it definitely has that fun 3-dimension aspect to it, right? It sits up, it's got a lot going on. Definitely one that is going to get noticed for sure. You could stack this with other bracelets if you wanted to, but I definitely would let this be the star of the show. Anything I stacked this with, I would probably make a little bit smaller, you know, but that's just me. That's just me. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me this Saturday. It has been a fun time. I hope that I have inspired you to try out the tying station and use some different beads to create friendship bracelets that are more of like the grown-up version of a friendship bracelet, right? This is definitely not the kind of bracelet that we made back in the summer camp days, but just as easy, right? But has more of that kind of boutique feel to it than the summer camp bracelets of yesterday. All right, so if you recreate this bracelet or you make your own adjustments and twists, make sure that you add your hashtags, right? You want to add hashtag make it with Michaels or hashtag Michaels classes, or you can hashtag me, Sarah Ellis Designs, Meredith Roddy Designs. She's here in the comments section, taking care of business as usual. So yeah. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I cannot wait to see what you guys make. So definitely post them online so that we can all see and inspire each other. Have a wonderful afternoon, you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.